The White Australia policy, as the name suggests, was an immigration policy in place from 1901 until 1958, although it arguably ended a few years later. If you're an Australian like me, you might have heard the name of this policy, but don't actually know much about it, and if you're a foreigner, you may have never even heard of this dark part of Australia's history. In this video, I'm going to be explaining what it was, who it affected, and how it came to an end. The White Australia policy was proposed shortly after Australia gained independence from Britain under the Barton government. It was likely wanted to be put in place to please the huge number of Australians who favoured restricting non-white immigration and maintaining Australia's British character, as it was those same people that were responsible for the founding and election of the Labour Party under Barton. But before this policy was able to be made law, there was already issues and controversies surrounding it worldwide. You see, in the early drafts of the treaty, the Act explicitly banned non-Europeans from migrating to Australia. The legal issue with this was that even though Australia had gained independence, Britain still held a lot of power in Australian politics and objected this part of the Act over fear that it would offend the many non-white people living in her empire. This pressure from Britain forced the Barton government to remove this wording and instead implement a Dictation Test as a device to exclude unwanted immigrants, i.e. anyone who wasn't British. Under this proposal, immigration officials would be given the power to exclude any person who failed to pass a 50-word dictation test that could be forced to be taken in any European language, meaning that immigration officials could exclude anyone from entering Australia on the basis of race without explicitly saying so, by making it so the test was impossible for a non-white person to pass. This also wasn't one standardised test, as I'm sure you guessed. The officials could pick and choose a language for each person, making it utterly impossible for anyone who the officials didn't want to gain entry pass. Another shocking thing about this proposal is that it wasn't even mandatory to take the test to gain entry, and that the officials would be able to choose who would have to sit and ultimately fail it, which was almost always determined by race. Sadly, this proposal found strong support in the new Australian Parliament, with arguments for it ranging from economic protection to outright racism, with the Labour Party even pushing for stricter restrictions against non-white immigrants. Those demands would not come to pass, however, unlike the original proposal, which, due to its widespread support, became law on the 23rd of December 1901, marking the beginning of what would be known as the White Australia policy. There were many changes made to the Act throughout its over 50-year span, with the most notable being the 1932 amendment, where the Act was changed to be allowed to be administered in the first 5 years of a non-white person's residency an unlimited amount of times, meaning even if you passed it the first time or had somehow gained entry into Australia through another method, they could just force you to take it until you eventually failed. Fortunately, this policy would eventually come to an end as Australia's policies shifted towards a pro-immigration stance post-World War II. In 1958, the Act would be modified again this time to abolish the Dictation Test, which had previously terrorised all non-white people seeking to enter Australia, which for the record included Southern Europeans and basically any other European that wasn't British or Northern European. Unfortunately though, this wouldn't yet mark the end of the policy, and it would still be extremely difficult for those deemed non-white to enter Australia until the Act was officially dismantled by the Labour Party in 1966. After the Act was gone, Australia unsurprisingly saw a huge increase in the number of non-white peoples coming to our great country, which ultimately led to the multicultural place Australia is today. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I know this was a very short one, but there's actually a reason for that, being that I'll be trialing with uploading 3 to 4 smaller videos a week instead of one big video like I have been up until this point. Hope you guys like this new format. Feel free to leave your opinion in the comments, as well as any future videos I could do. But, with all that being said, guys, I hope you have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you lovely people in the next one.